Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jonah White. I'm an independent apocalyptic author, the author of the Shadows of Darkness series. I have one book released last year in August, not the best of years, and the second book is coming out hopefully this summer of 2021 with an announcement of a spin-off book coming very soon. So in this video we're going to be talking about how to write a compelling and page-turning second act. I'm going to be providing some tips on what to do and what to add to this second act, as well as maybe a few tips of what not to do. I'm not going to be telling you how exactly to write your second act. That's totally up to you because you're the author of your own book. I'm going to be telling you tips that you should be implementing into your writing or your story. That way you're not, every story isn't feeling the same, or I'm not telling you, oh, this is how you should write your story, or your story should have these certain beats or something like that. But I'm just providing you tips that you could take into consideration and implement into your second act. Because the second act is the longest act out of the acts 1, 2, and 3, and this is the part that can really get bogged down or boring, or you can lose your reader's attention if this isn't done well, because this is sort of like the meat of your novel. But without any further talking, let's get into the tips that I have for writing a second act. Okay, so the first thing I would like to talk about is, obviously, in order to keep your readers engaged and wanting to keep turning the pages when it comes to your second act, is obviously make a compelling main character and dive more into their development and their backstory during the second act. Because the first act, you introduce us to your character and some of their traits and maybe a little bit of who they are, but the first act is mainly setting up for the second act because it's establishing the goal, like in the previous video we were talking about this, the stakes, what are the consequences if your character doesn't meet their goal, and the urgency. So that's what your first act is setting up. Now the second act, you can dive more into the character development, as well as see what your character is planning and doing to reach their goal. And we're going to talk about their pathway to the goal, but obviously you need to dive a little bit into their background because we need to know more about them. Reveal more about their character and what is really driving them, because we need to uncover more about your character. Because if we don't care about the character, or we don't grow to have more of an attachment to them throughout the second act, well, we can care less what happens to this character, so we could easily put the book down, especially if your book is not a plot-driven book but a character-driven book. Because if we don't care about the character and you're not trying to hook us more onto them as a person during the second act, readers are not going to continue if they don't like your character or they can't relate to them in any way. Okay, so another thing I like to talk about when it comes to your character is, obviously, in the first act you establish the goal, the stakes, and the urgency. So let's talk about the goal. Your character is pursuing something and they're an active, proactive character. So what is their path to reach this goal? Well, obviously it's probably going to be the easiest path they can find, or the path of least resistance to get to this goal. And the thing is, as us as the reader, we kind of expect or anticipate that this plan or this path to reach their goal is not going to be as simple as what your main character would like it to play out. Or they lay out a plan okay, I'm going to do this to reach my goal, but we already know it's not going to go that way. So obviously we need to make clear of what your character's plan is to reach that goal. That way we know exactly what this character is planning to do, and we can see this plan play out. Don't make it vague or just vaguely describe how they're going to get to that goal. Make that we know exactly how your characters are planning to reach their goal. Okay, so this kind of leads to the next point. This is where you raise the stakes by adding obstacles or roadblocks for your character in order to reach their goal. Because remember, they're trying to take the path of least resistance to reach that goal, but along the way you can have an antagonist or just internal or external threats, or throwing in roadblocks to block your character from reaching this goal. So this kind of adds tension and stakes, because the more roadblocks that come, the more your character is forced to change their strategy or change as a person to reach their goals. Because this is going to add more excitement, because if you just lay out the plan and then the character just moseys on through the story and just reaches their goal, exactly how they had planned it from the beginning with no sort of like alterations or complications, well, your story's gonna be very predictable and boring. And the thing is, it's going to feel like not really relatable or that interesting because it just came too easy. Like your character just planned it and then executed the plan exactly how they wanted to. So add roadblocks, raise the stakes. That way you force your character to come up with alternative ways or better ways to reach their goal. That way, by the time they reach their goal, it's going to feel earned. Okay, so this is going to feed into the next point when it comes to writing a compelling second act, and that is to obviously like write the plot twist around the center of the book towards the end of the second act. That way this really can throw your readers off, or this really sets your character back big time. It's either a plot twist or it could be like all hope is lost, kind of like in many Pixar movies you always have like the all hope is lost moment like towards the end of the second act. And the reason why you want sort of like these things is that this like brings your main character to a very low point. Like, and this could be the section where if there's an antagonist in your story, they come out on top or they win against your main character, or they really set your main character back, or like it just feels like the whole plan came crashing down on the characters and they're not going to reach their goal. So this is necessary because now your character is like at rock bottom and we kind of feel bad for them because they didn't reach their goal. But the thing is, they're going to rise back up, leading to the third act. That way they can like rise from the ashes and like and try to like find a new way to reach their goal. That way the success in the third act or the climax, which we'll get into in another video, feels super satisfying because we saw the character establish their goals and we know the stakes and urgency from Act 1. Act 2 is the journey that they're taking to get there, with complications constantly challenging your character to change as a person or change their strategy to reach their goal. But then it all comes crashing down and then we feel bad for them because how are they going to reach their goal now? So now they have to like start from rock bottom and work their way back up in order to reach their goals. Okay, so another thing that you want to do when it comes to writing a page-turning second act is to not make it boring. And what I mean by boring is like maybe like you don't really show much of the character's journey throughout the story to reach their goal, or like there's not enough obstacles. And one particular thing that can make your story boring is unnecessary and useless scenes. Now remember, in previous videos we said when it comes to like movies, books can get away with this a little bit, but not by much. Is that your scenes need to be doing one of two things. A, they need to be advancing the plot, or B, it needs to be developing the character. And if it's not doing any of those things, try to either rearrange it or rewrite it to like do one of those two things, or just cut it out. Because if you have too many scenes like this in a book, it's going to feel like a slog. And another thing that you want to avoid in the second act is that maybe the first act you kind of like show like things like the characters like day cycle or something, like shows their like when they get up and what they do, because you're trying to introduce us to that. Don't do that in the second act where you're just having pointless scenes of characters just doing routines or anything like that, because this is really not the time for you to be doing that. Yes, the second act is a time for you to slow down at times from the action and develop the characters and give us more of those character moments, or showing us the characters' philosophy or how they're changing mentally. But that's all woven into like character development. Like daily routines or anything like that doesn't really develop the character. And if it does help develop the character, that should be moved near the beginning or anything like that. That shit has no business being in the second act, or at least predominantly played. Because those slower moments where we get to see the character's philosophy or see them change as a person, that's developing the character. So that's what fits into one of the two things that I just talked about. Like it's developing the character and it is advancing the plot, because we're seeing a change throughout the character. Which is the next point, is make sure your character learns something, either like mentally or something like that. That way we follow them on this not only external journey towards their goal, but also an internal journey, because both are going to like appeal to your readers, because we don't want to just see one but not the other, because both are kind of needed in a character-driven story. So one final thing that you want to do when it comes to adding something to your, or implementing it into your second act, is implement in some way or form that once the characters start this journey towards their goal, there's certain points where there's a point of no return. Like they can't just return back to where they were or just end their journey towards their goal and it's like, okay, that's it. Like, because if that's the case, if things got hard, they could just literally quit and the book could end. Pretty much like that. Yes, you do have the stakes and the urgency to kind of like make sure your characters don't detour from reaching that goal, but like there are certain things that you have to do to make sure that there is that point of no return. That way your characters are kind of like forced to continue on their journey or find new ways to like reach that goal. Like say for instance, we have someone who's trying to get into is trying to impress some popular people, but then they lie about their personal life to begin talking to these people. So now that they lied about where they came from and who they are, now these people are talking to them. So this is sort of like the pathway towards of no return, because if this person stops lying or something like that, or the people find out the truth, they're going to abandon him and he's going to feel like nothing again. He's going to lose these new group of friends. So what does he do? He tries to maybe spend a little bit of money and dress up more like them, or tries to like tries more to conceal his personal life, where the lies just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then at this point, there's really no point of return unless your character decides to the only thing they can do is course correct and try to tell the truth, but then again it's setting them on another goal of no return, because now that things are messed up, now you're trying to set yourself on telling the truth and you accept the consequences, so there's no turning back once you set yourself on this journey. That way we feel for this storytelling is very compelling, because now we're fully invested in this character's journey, because we don't want a story where there isn't some sort of like point of no return, where we can be like, well, you could just give up your journey and then just go back to normal life and everything should be fine. Yes, this can work in some stories, but most of them you kind of want to implement like sort of like if they set themselves on this journey, things are not going to be the same if they detour from it, and it's not going to go back to normal if they return from trying to pursue this goal. Okay, so those are the tips I have for you guys today on how to write a compelling and page-turning second act. Now we're going to move towards like the third act. Hopefully next week I'm going to be filming this video like right away, because I feel like the second act is very important, but also the third act. Now if you haven't already, feel free to like and subscribe. That way I know that these are the type of videos that you enjoy, as well as I'll produce more writing tips videos, as well as like writing vlogs and anything like that. But without any further ado, I'll see you guys next time. Happy writing and good day.